Welcome to this class. So we're going to paint this plum and I am going to simplify it for you since this is a beginner class. So we're gonna make it way more simple and slower. So the plum is somewhere right here because a little bit parts of it are a little orange and then we have the yellow, right? What is the color on the opposite side of the color wheel? We have blue and then blue purple, but blue purple is basically a combination of red and blue together. So that's what creates a shade of blue purple or blue violet, if you want to call it that way. So red and blue will give you that shade. But this shade here, the blue purple, has only a little bit of red in it. So we're still kind of sticking here with the blue basically. So think blue. So if our plum is somewhere here, then we want to add a little bit of blue to that yellow to create that shade of that shadow that we see in the reference. And you can see that it's kind of like it almost goes into green. First things first, let's grab a brush. I'm gonna grab my long quill size 4 because it's a larger area and I am going to start wetting the plum. So start wetting it for a while, okay? So wet it, wet it, wet it. And try to use a cold pressed 140 pounds, 100% cotton watercolor paper. Let's grab imidazolone yellow. Think of it like it's milk consistency. And then maybe the other yellow if you have another yellow. And now I have these yellows on my brush. What I want you to do is circle the highlight. There's your highlight right there. This is where you are not going to apply colors. You're going to stay away from this. Try to grab less paint overall. So more of these yellows, but less overall. And now you're going a little farther away, just like this. So farther away, and then more paint. Now try to grab even more of the other yellow if you're using the other yellow. So now you're changing the shade of that yellow. And you're kind of circling around, right? We haven't gotten to this part yet. So I want you to grab even more of the paint. This is more like between milk and half now, half and half like ratio. And now go closer with the tip of your brush, using the tip of your brush, go closer toward like the edges. So the pointy part of the brush should help you to go along the edges, to not go over the edges. And you're kind of pressing a little harder to release the paint too. Now, what I want you to do is grab some of this imidazolone yellow or whatever yellow you have, milk-like ratio, and then grab a little bit of red, but that's too much for me. So I'm gonna go back here. And now, where do you see the more like orange colors? Here, right? So if the paint, you feel like the paint is spreading too much, go with a heavier ratio, so like a half and half, and less on your brush. So you can always wipe your brush on a towel. Now this is the area that should be a little more yellowish, but I have this orange, right? It's by mixing the red and yellow together. So I'm going right here where I feel that shade of orange. I want to clean my brush because I want to grab a little bit more of just the yellow. Now I wipe my brush on a towel and I feel like I need to go with like a half and half to heavy cream-like ratio even because now I've been adding paint for a while and this is all, there's too much water in a way. So now to have more control, less water, less paint on my brush. Now this feels kind of more damp. It's not like a full brush anymore. So let's go with that full, the more like a damp brush. So wipe your brush a little bit on a towel and kind of go through it, through these areas. Go through these areas. Make sure that you have color along the edges, but don't go over. And I just did. Oopsie daisy. All right, I went over, kind of wiped it with my finger. All right. Now, what I want you to do is grab with the tip of your brush. Don't dip your brush in water. Don't clean it. Just grab like a little thicker paint. Think of like heavy cream. Like go for that island here of color where it's like thicker paint. I'm sorry. And then with the tip of your brush, apply that red toward the top. The top, where we see a little bit, the hints of red, right? And what else? Actually, this is a good spot. And stay away from that highlight, right? We circled it before. So you should be fine. If you went over it, you can always use a damp brush and kind of lift the colors. But I would suggest doing it over again because if you're a beginner, you really want to get the feel of like staying away from that highlighted part. Now, I have that thread still here, right? And I actually need something else. Like for example, let's grab that thread and some of this yellow again. And let's go here, go back here, because this is more orange-like. Paper is still wet. I wetted it for a while. But that doesn't mean it's gonna stay wet for a long time. So I have to hurry up. So even if you still see me applying colors, but for you, like you can already see dimension, you preserve the lights, you have the shadows, the plum looks great, then I want you to leave it. This is my round 2, okay? It's a damp brush. At first I might need a little water, but I'm gonna grab this thick paint, which is quinacridone red. I'm gonna place it right here. I'm gonna grab this thick yellow, and then I'm gonna grab this thick blue. I want you to slightly blend these together. A little more yellow. I'm sorry, this is it. I wasn't showing this right. Basically, this is the blue, red, yellow. Slightly blend them till it feels like you're getting to that brown shade of brown. First, we're gonna do this little stem. Cream top. This is what I call cream top like ratio, okay? Now I want you to grab a little more of the yellow to it here. Go toward like the orange. And this is again creamy paint, cream top. And before this loses shine, I want you to go through that line with a small brush and just apply it in like a couple areas basically. You don't have to go through the whole thing. I just want you to apply it in one kind of area. Like again, you don't have to apply it everywhere. And then if it needs more blue, maybe I am gonna add a little more blue here. And that's it. All right, now that the plum has dried, I am going to paint this leaf. So we're gonna paint this leaf together. We're going to wet it, just like the plum, and then we're going to apply colors wet on wet. So slightly dilute your colors with water. And here is my long quill, size 2, and I begin wetting the, now I removed a little bit of too much of that water, but I'm going to grab a little bit of my phthalo blue here. You can grab the cobalt blue, I guess that's what we were using, but I have here now phthalo blue, and this is where my highlights are, right? So right here, this is really spreading, so maybe I have a little too much water. So what I'm gonna do is go through this part again, just to make sure I don't have puddles. What I want is imidazolone yellow, and I'm gonna grab right away a little bit of that sap green. It's mostly the yellow, but I do have some sap green. And these are the greenish parts of the leaf, right? But I wanna start with a little bit of yellow for my undertone, and you can completely just start with yellow too, and then add green as a second color. One thing that I just noticed when someone's starting out with watercolors and needs help is that they overly mix colors on the palette and you get into that muddiness very quickly. That's not what you want. You don't want muddiness of colors. So very minimal blending of colors on the palette, and all this needs to happen on the paper. Now, because I've been painting already for, I guess, a minute or whatever it is, I'm gonna grab now like this heavy cream of this sap green. I did not clean my brush, and I'm just gonna grab this phthalo blue, okay? So now I am going to completely change the shade of this green, even though I still have the colors that I've already added. And watch how the paint spreads. Now, another thing I like to do is kind of find my veins, find the veins and kind of go over these veins, because later I'm just gonna lift them and I'm gonna have this color like hugging the sides of that lifted line. So let's wet it first. This is my round 3 songbird detail, so it's a smaller, stiffer brush. We can actually wet all of this at once. We just don't wet these pieces of a branch, or what we could do is grab a little bit of this quinacridone red here. Start with a little bit of yellow, and then we'll start adding other colors as well. So watch how the paint spreads. because it's really nice how there you have that flow. And you add it, but not everywhere. It's not important to add it everywhere. So we have sap green additionally and Van Dyke brown to change the shade of this red. And you're just looking for the areas where to place it. So what would be the areas to place it? First, we added like lighter colors. Now this is darker, right? So I'm gonna grab again the same thing, plus maybe a little bit of blue, change the shade of it. But now for adding darks, then look for the darkest areas where to add it. So there's a contrast here that we need to make sure we have it too in our... Hi, my friends. So that's it for this class. If you feel comfortable with this, which I hope you do now, I hope you will take this other class with me now, which is a full painting of a few plums and the bird. You don't have to paint the bird, you can just focus on the plums. So thank you so much for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions.